The hospital, bathed in the spectral glow of dimmed hallway lights, echoed with the muted footsteps of the night shift. Dr. Catherine Miller, a seasoned pathologist with a penchant for the unexplained, embarked on another solitary night in the morgue. The sterile hum of refrigeration units greeted me as I descended into the cold embrace of steel and silence. The morgue, a chamber of quiet contemplation and clinical detachment, seemed to hold its breath as I began my nightly duties. The fluorescent lights cast an eerie pallor over the stainless steel tables, each adorned with a white-sheeted figure, a cadaver awaiting my scrutiny. The night, however, bore a weight beyond the clinical routine. The air whispered with an unseen energy, sending a shiver down my spine. I dismissed it as the natural consequence of the graveyard shift's isolation, a trick the mind plays when left alone in the company of the departed. As I delved into the autopsies, the stillness of the morgue was disrupted by a soft, distant whisper. "Catherine." I paused, the scalpel in my hand, hovering over the cadaver. The name echoed through the sterile chamber, carried by a voice that transcended the boundaries of the living. The cadavers, once silent, seemed to stir beneath their shrouds. "Help us, Catherine," the whisper pleaded, a haunting call that resonated with an otherworldly intensity. The air itself seemed to pulse with the weight of unspoken tales. Determined to maintain my composure, I continued my work, attributing the spectral intrusion to fatigue and imagination. The whispers, however, persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. The cadavers, animated by an unseen force, became conduits for the voices of the departed. In a trance-like state, I approached the nearest table. With trembling hands, I uncovered the face of the lifeless form, a man in his 40s, his once closed eyes now holding a spectral glimmer. The whispers intensified, revealing fragmented tales of lives cut short, of souls ensnared in the limbo of the morgue. Compelled by an inexplicable force, I began to speak, engaging in a spectral dialogue with the departed. The air crackled with unseen energy, and the fluorescent lights flickered in response to the ethereal communion. As the night deepened, the morgue transformed into a crucible of metaphysical energies. The cadavers, animated by spectral forces, responded to my words, their once muted voices rising in a haunting symphony. The room pulsated with an ethereal light, and the boundary between the living and the dead blurred in the spectral dance that unfolded. In the midst of the metaphysical crescendo, the whispers unveiled their tales, unresolved narratives of lost souls tethered to the morgue, yearning for release from the confines of mortality. The spectral chorus reached its zenith, creating an otherworldly harmony that echoed through the cold walls. As the ritual unfolded, a blinding light enveloped the morgue, and a profound calm settled over the once turbulent spirits. The cadavers, their spectral forms illuminated by an ethereal glow, dissipated like morning mist, leaving behind a palpable sense of peace. The whispers ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that reverberated through the morgue. I stood alone in the sterile chamber, physically and emotionally drained by the spectral encounter. The fluorescent lights hummed with a renewed vigor, casting a clinical glow on the stainless steel surfaces. Dawn approached, bathing the hospital in the soft hues of morning light. I emerged from the morgue, the weight of the spectral night etched into my countenance. The hospital, unaware of the metaphysical drama that had unfolded in its depths, resumed its daily routines. As I stepped into the breaking dawn, the morgue stood silent, waiting for the next chapter in the enigmatic dance between the realms of the living and the dead. The whispers, now stilled, lingered in the recesses of memory, a testament to the ephemeral connection forged in the spectral encounter. The hospital, bathed in the first light of day, carried the echoes of the departed within its walls, and I, forever changed by the spectral communion, carried the weight of an otherworldly dialogue that transcended the boundaries of the known, a midnight reckoning with the souls that linger in the liminal spaces of its existence. A simple chapter in the enigmatic dance between the realms of the living and the dead. The whispers, for now, stilled, lingered in the recesses of memory, a testament to the ephemeral connection forged in the spectral encounter.
The hospital at night was cloaked in shadows and echoing with the distant hum of machinery. An eerie charm. A young doctor on my first ever night shift, I stepped into the unknown with a mix of trepidation and curiosity. Little did I know that the sterile hallways and silent chambers would unveil an encounter that would forever haunt my medical journey. The morgue, a place I'd only seen in passing during daylight hours, awaited me. Armed with a white coat and the hesitancy of a novice, I descended into the dimly lit domain. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows on the cold linoleum floor. As I approached the room, a peculiar stillness settled in the air, amplifying the hushed whispers of the night. The quiet echoed with the muted footsteps of the few souls navigating the nocturnal realm of healing. The hospital at night, I soon realized, was a different entity, a living, breathing organism where every creak and shuffle carried an unspoken history. My first task was to examine an elderly man who had succumbed to the inevitability of time. The sterile chamber held an oppressive silence as I began my work, guided by the teachings of textbooks rather than personal experience. The cadaver lay beneath the crisp white sheet, a solemn figure on the stainless steel table. As I delved into my duties, the air seemed to thicken with an unspoken weight. A subtle chill crept down my spine, and the fluorescent lights flickered with a peculiar rhythm. In the solitude of the morgue, my senses heightened, attuned to the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. And then, I heard it. A soft, raspy cough, distant yet unmistakable. My gaze darted around the morgue, seeking the source of the inexplicable sound. The cadaver before me lay motionless, the room seemingly devoid of life. As I continued my examination, the cough persisted, accompanied by the faint shuffle of footsteps. I hesitated, the realization settling in. An empty morgue should not echo with the sounds of the living. A quiet dread seized me as I acknowledged the possibility that I might not be alone. The fluorescent lights flickered again, casting a stuttering glow on the morgue's sterile surfaces. I felt a presence in the room, an unseen gaze that bore into my very soul. Gathering my courage, I turned to face the silent observer, half expecting to find a living colleague sharing the nocturnal duties. To my astonishment, there, at the threshold of the morgue, stood the figure of an old man. His eyes, clouded with the weight of years, met mine with a gaze that transcended the boundaries of the corporeal. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized I was not alone with the living, but in the company of a spectral visitor. The figure, dressed in attire that echoed a bygone era, offered a feeble smile. His form seemed to waver, a translucent presence that defied the laws of the living. I stumbled backward, my rational mind grappling with the inexplicable. "Doctor?" he rasped, his voice carrying the echo of ages. "You can see me." I nodded, my voice caught in the grip of disbelief. The old man explained that he had passed away in the hospital years ago, his spirit lingering in the morgue where his mortal journey had concluded. As he spoke, the morgue transformed into a realm between worlds, a liminal space where the living and the dead coexisted. The fluorescent lights pulsed with an ethereal glow, casting a surreal ambiance upon the cold surroundings. The man, a phantom of the hospital's past, shared fragments of his life, the joy of youth, the trials of age, and the quiet acceptance of mortality. He spoke not with bitterness, but with a profound longing, a desire to be acknowledged in the realm of the living. In that spectral communion, I became the conduit between the two worlds. The old man's presence, once haunting, became a testament to the interconnectedness of life and death. He conveyed a message, a quiet plea for remembrance, a yearning to be more than a faded memory in the annals of the hospital's history. As the night wore on, I found solace in the company of the old man's ghost. The morgue, once a sterile chamber of clinical detachment, became a sanctuary where the living and the dead shared a fleeting connection. The fluorescent lights, now a beacon in the spectral darkness, cast a symbolic bridge between realms.
As I stepped into the hospital for the last time, the weight of years in medicine pressed upon my shoulders. This night, my final night shift before retirement, held a peculiar blend of nostalgia and anticipation. The fluorescent lights above flickered in rhythmic sync with the beats of my weary heart, each pulse echoing with the countless lives I had encountered within these walls. The morgue, a place I had frequented throughout my long career, beckoned with a silent promise of closure. The sterile hum of refrigeration units accompanied my footsteps as I descended into the bowels of the hospital. The morgue, a realm of finality, awaited my presence one last time. The cadaver on the stainless steel table, a silent companion in my farewell tour, bore the weight of a life extinguished. As I donned my gloves, the cold touch of the latex seemed to carry the residue of countless examinations conducted over the years. The cadaver's face, peaceful in repose, bore the lines of a life well lived. As I began the routine examination, the hum of the morgue transformed into a distant melody, a haunting tune that seemed to emanate from the very walls. I glanced around, half expecting a living colleague to share in my farewell ritual, but the morgue remained a silent chamber, with only the cadaver as my companion. The melody, however, persisted, its spectral notes weaving through the sterile air. I approached the cadaver with a reverence that transcended medical routine. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows that danced in tandem with the ethereal symphony. A voice, soft and distant, accompanied the spectral melody. "Doctor." I turned, expecting to find a living presence, but the morgue held only the cadaver and the remnants of the haunting tune. The voice, however, persisted, an echo from the realm beyond the living. "Help me, Doctor," the voice pleaded, a spectral whisper that resonated with an otherworldly intensity. A chill ran down my spine as I acknowledged the inexplicable, a plea from a spirit that lingered in the liminal space between life and death. The melody, a spectral accompaniment, seemed to emanate from the very walls of the morgue. Compelled by an unseen force, I unveiled the cadaver's face. The eyes, once closed in the finality of death, now held a spectral glimmer. The haunting melody intensified, revealing fragmented tales of a life cut short, of unresolved narratives that lingered in the afterlife. The cadaver, once a silent witness to mortality, became a vessel for the voice that sought release. I, the old doctor on my final night shift, found myself in the midst of a spectral encounter that defied the rational confines of medical practice. Driven by a duty that surpassed the boundaries of the known, I began to speak, a one-sided dialogue with the departed. The spectral voice, once a distant whisper, became a chorus of the untold stories that echoed through the morgue. The fluorescent lights flickered with each uttered word, casting a surreal ambiance upon the clinical surroundings. As the spectral communion unfolded, the morgue transformed into a nexus between worlds. The haunting melody reached its zenith, creating an ethereal symphony that transcended the boundaries of mortal perception. The cadaver, animated by spectral energies, became a conduit for the voice that sought closure. In the midst of the metaphysical crescendo, the morgue seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. The boundary between the living and the dead blurred, and I, the old doctor on the eve of retirement, became a participant in the enigmatic dance between realms. The voice, once haunted, found solace in the spectral dialogue. The haunting melody, now a harmonious blend of the departed's tales, reverberated through the morgue, creating an ephemeral bridge between the living and the dead. As the ritual neared its conclusion, the fluorescent lights pulsed with an ethereal glow. The spectral voice, having found release, faded into the unseen tapestry of the afterlife. The cadaver, now at peace, lay motionless on the table, the weight of its spectral burden lifted. I stood alone, the echoes of the spectral encounter lingering in the sterile air. The fluorescent lights, now returned to their clinical glow, cast a sober ambiance upon the stainless steel surfaces. Dawn approached, heralding the end of my final night shift. As I emerged, the weight of the spectral encounter etched into my countenance. I realized that my retirement marked not just the end of a career, but a transition into the unknown. The hospital, unaware of the metaphysical drama that had unfolded in its depths, resumed its nocturnal rhythm. The morgue, once a realm of finality, stood as a testament to the encounters that lingered in the recesses of medical history. I walked into the breaking dawn, carrying the echoes of the departed within the corridors. From that night, beyond retirement, I could never forget that cold voice.